artist. In today's video, I'm going to unbox, swatch, paint, and share my thoughts about the ShinHan Gouache Set B. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Irit. I'm a watercolor and mixed media artist based in Austria, and on my channel, I share my artsy adventures. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, leave me a comment. How do you feel about gouache? Have you tried these? I would also really love to know what is your go-to gouache brand and why. We are talking today about traditional gouache. This is not to be confused with acrylic gouache, which is completely different. Traditional gouache, it's like sort of opaque matte watercolor in the sense that it is water soluble and it is not permanent. So this is the set B, and I do think it is important to mention that this is set B because probably if you want a more well-rounded set to start with, I would not start with this set unless you were willing to add a few things such as white. You definitely need to add white. So what I'm going to show you today is opening this set, setting up the palette. I will leave links to everything below. I will also add time stamps so you can skip around if you're more interested in one section or another. And and share my impressions with these. Now, I haven't had these for long. I'm also not an expert on gouache, but I have tried many brands and I am familiar with the medium. And so I thought it would be fun to try these. The colors looked very pretty to me and the price was quite attractive. So this set currently costs around $70 on Amazon. I encourage you to shop around. When I bought it, it was on sale for $50. It includes 24 tubes of 15 milliliter each, so you get a lot of paint. I happen to have this palette which has exactly 24 wells. And don't come for me in the comments for it being dirty. I made the mistake of using it with oil paint and yeah, I couldn't remove all of it, or let's say I just didn't feel like it. So it is what it is. And I preferred to use it than give it up, even if it would annoy some viewers who like pristine palettes. So use what you have. So I was just arranging them to make for an order that made sense for me, and then proceeded to pour them. Most of them had a really nice consistency, except a couple. I think those were the cadmiums and cobalts, which tend to be a drier pigment. So you can see kind of the difference between the two, but only like a couple of tubes had that more separation. The way that I like to use gouache is not necessarily freshly squeezed. Like I don't want to squeeze paint every time I'm sitting down to paint. So that's why I chose this palette. It is quite airtight. Since pouring the paints, it's been a week now that I'm recording the narration, and they are still quite juicy and lovely to work with. This is my preferred way of working. A lot of artists prefer to freshly squeeze the paint when they're sitting down to paint. Yeah, not me. I also have to say that I actually used a white from ShinHan, and the white hardened much faster than the ShinHan, which for me is a great sign to continue to use these, because as I said, I prefer to use them already squeezed out and in a palette. So it's nice to see that they are not drying super fast. In theory, gouache should be workable even after months, but in practice, many times they will just crumble to a level that you can't really use them. So let's see the colors in this set, and then I will show you some painting process and talk about the performance and my experience with them. But purely speaking of color, which is, one of my things. So the set has 2.5 yellows, I'm going to call it. There's a Naples yellow that you can see it's quite earthy. It's okay. And then the other yellow is called the Permanent Yellow Deep, and that is on the verge of orange. Now, personally, these are exactly the kind of yellows that I like and I use all the time, so I'm not mad about it, but this is definitely not the most versatile choice you could make. Again, you're probably better off starting with set A if you just want a more versatile palette. However, if you like the colors in this set, you might consider investing in it. The third color is this Yellow Brilliant. It's kind of like a peachy color. It's a nice color to have. Do I use it a lot? I'm not sure. Then we have two reds. My favorite is Cadmium Red, which looks less orangey than on screen than it actually is. I really like this color. I use it a lot. It's practically orange, but kind of like in that, fire hydrant red type of color, like a very, very orangey red. So I really like that. I know it doesn't appear on screen. Then we have Quinacridone Red. That's how they call this color. I don't know if the name is so accurate. It's kind of like a basic red. It does lean slightly blue. I don't know if you can see that. It's just not the color that I like to use, but I'm sure a lot of people would find it very useful. Okay, let's get into the pinks. Now, if you know me, pink is like my color, and this set has interesting choices. So as you can see, there's like this one pink that is quite fluorescent. It's light. I do like it, probably less completely on its own without mixing, maybe just like tiny touches of it, but for mixing it's great. And then the magenta is, I would call it a red violet. So if I wanted to make this palette more usable for me personally, I would add a pink, and actually the two pinks that are in set A look really, really nice. So I think together the sets would be a very nice, well-rounded palette. Okay, moving on to the purples. I'm actually happy with the purples they included. One is called Cobalt Violet Hue, and it is, you can see, a quite intense purple. It's not a color I use a ton, definitely not on its own, but it is useful for mixing, and if you add a lot of white to it, you get very pretty violet shades. Then we have Lilac. I personally love these kinds of shades. It's, that kind of lilac lavender color that is quite popular, and I think almost every brand has versions of these. And this is a nice version. It's probably a touch muted, but it's still nice. And then we have Hydrangea Blue, which is just like a lovely shade. It looks like ultramarine with just a touch of white. Personal preference, I really like this color. I don't know how other people feel about it. And then we have a really nice selection of blues, again, that fits my personal preferences. There is the Ultramarine Deep, which is like a classic. Then we have Indigo, which I'm really loving at the moment. So happy to have it in the set. This is probably the darkest color in the set. The set doesn't have black, again. Check set A for those basics, but there are a couple, like the Indigo is very, very dark, probably dark enough for me that I don't need anything darker. And then there's also Sepia, which we'll get to later. It's like a dark brown, so you can make all kinds of really dark grays and almost blacks with the two of them. So you definitely have this range of values. Again, you'll need white to get the full range of values from this set. There aren't any really, I mean, the yellows are kind of light, but not enough for my style of painting anyway. And then there are two more blues. I'm sorry, I forgot to move the camera. Cobalt Blue and Peacock Blue. The Cobalt Blue, it's like a really nice shade of that color. And then the Peacock Blue, I know it looks weird on camera. It's actually, I would say, sort of like something between Phthalo Blue and Phthalo Turquoise. So like a cyan color. Very useful, and yeah, it's a nice version of it. It's an intense color. And then there's the weirdness of this palette, which basically there are like 4 quite similar teal colors, and then this shadow green pale, which is just like this muted green, which I'm not hating. Like, I like it. It's an interesting color. But then we have the blue green, the green pale, the turquoise green, and the last one, permanent green deep. That one is more like a viridian. But those like 3 teal colors, again, I'm not hating it because this is a color that I actually use a lot and I really love. But definitely that's like a lot. That's a lot of teal. So it's kind of like a weird balance. Like, I would trade one of those for a really, really nice pink, but that's just me. And then we have 2 greens, which I personally really like. One is the Terra Verde, I think it was called, and the other one is, soon we will see the name if I move my sketchbook, moss green. Yeah, so they are both slightly muted. Moss green is like beautiful. It's like this olive green that I absolutely love. So I'm super happy with the greens in this set. Of course, you can mix a lot of your own greens, which I like to do. You have these nice warm yellows and you have a lot of blues. So yeah, you will probably not be able to mix a super, super vibrant, like spring green type of color, because there is, like, the yellows are very, very warm in the set. So yeah, that's one limitation, which I don't mind because I don't like that color. And last but not least, well, maybe least, because I'm not a fan of earth tones, there are 3 earth colors. There is sepia, which you can see is very dark. There is raw umber and raw sienna. And I actually really like the earth tones. I did find that I use them. I think they're lovely to have when you're doing landscapes. As you can see, they are not super orangey like burnt sienna or, you know, Indian red even. Those are like reddy orangey. These are not, and I'm happy about it. So all in all, the colors in this palette, you can use it as a standalone palette with the addition of white. And that's what I've been trying to do, so I would get a better sense of it. For me personally, I definitely want to throw in at least like a pink in there. I would say that's probably like the only urgent color that I feel is needed there, and I could definitely live without like the red in the set, and, you know, probably like 1 or 2 of the teals. The rest of the video is some of my painting experiences with the palette, and I have to say I really enjoyed using these. I think because the price point was so good compared to artist grade gouache paints, I felt a little less precious, like really digging into them. And as opposed to painting with watercolors, at least in the way that I paint, I definitely use up more paint when it comes to gouache. And, you know, those 15 milliliter tubes, they don't last as long as watercolor tubes, at least not for me. And so it would be really, really nice to find kind of a go-to option that is more affordable. Now, I don't know if I can actually find these open stock, but I would say if you want to play with gouache and, you know, you might be too overwhelmed with brands' color selection, then just grabbing a set would be really, really fun. And set A right now is $65 on Amazon at the time of recording, which is still a great price for a high quality gouache paint. Now, obviously, I haven't tested these. I don't know the Lightfast ratings of all of them. This remains to be tested, but from the experience of painting with them, they definitely compare to the other gouache paints that I've tried. I've tried pretty much all of the major brands, Winsor & Newton, Holbein, and a couple of more that escape. Oh, Daniel Smith. Daniel Smith is my favorite when it comes to formulation, but they are really expensive. And so it's nice to have other options. Now, I will take this opportunity to say that if you want to see more painting process videos and more tutorials and more inspiration, then I invite you to join the Joy Art Club, which is my monthly membership. It's only €9 a month or 79 for the year, which means you get 3 months for free basically. And there I share a lot more. There's also a community. It's just a lovely place. We are over 80 people right now, and this is the first year of the membership. We are now 6 months into it, and that means that if you join now, you really have a say in what kind of content I create and what you would like to see. Now, another thing that I invite you to check out is my new book, The Creative Lens. Go to yourcreativelens.com and there you can read all about it. It's a new compilation of copyright-free images. There are more than 100 beautiful pictures that I took, most of them. A few were contributed by the lovely Tanya, some amazing safari pictures that she took. And all of these photos were taken, curated, and edited with the artist's eye in mind, which makes them perfect for painting and sketching. And so you can find that at yourcreativelens.com. And what you will also find there, if you want to buy the book, at checkout you have an option to add on the Creative Lens session, which is a growing library of painting process, sketching process, start to finish, step by step, where I use the photos from the Creative Lens to sketch and paint. And right now there are 10 plus because I'm just going to add a few videos to that library, and you can add it for just €15 to the Creative Lens ebook. It's an ebook, it's a digital product. So no physical book yet, at least, but you can just add it for €15 and you get immediate access to all of these brand new, never before seen tutorials. And that library will continue to grow as I add more tutorials to it, and the price will also rise. So now is the time to join, and I will leave all the links below, so check that out. Okay, so as for the paint, I really enjoyed working with this palette. For me, probably like the only thing that bugs me, because I'm so specific with color, are, yeah, I probably needed just like a pink, just one pink, and I would have been super happy. But it was really a joy to work with the paint. Also, after like a few days, I do keep the palette juicy, and I spray water when I start painting and when I stop painting. So before I close the palette with the lid, I keep it closed all the time to keep the paint juicy. As I said, I used white from Schminke, and the white kind of dried much more than the ShinHan paint. So I think for my purposes, it's a really great choice. I still have to see how it does in my Art Toolkit palette. It's like this travel palette where you have these really flat pans. And the other gouache paints that I've used, they crack a little bit. They're still very usable. So as I said, like Daniel Smith has a really great gouache formula, but the price is high. So I still want to try a few of these in those pans in that palette. But other than that, I'm really happy with them and their performance. The colors are intense. They're easy to blend. They dry mostly with one little like area in a painting that I think I used, that cadmium, was it the cadmium red? It kind of dried and still had a sheen, I think, from the binder in the tube. But for the most part, as gouache does, these dry to a beautiful matte finish, which is one of my favorite things when it comes to painting with gouache. I love the matte finish. Also, when I paint with acrylics, I prefer to use acrylics with a matte finish. And so these were like great to work with, and yeah, my initial experience is very, very positive. I just have to see, I'm not a purist gouache artist, so I tend to use gouache with watercolors and with other mediums. So I have to see how this combines or lends itself to my go-to combos. But all in all, I think it's a great option. And as I said, like the price is very attractive, especially if you get it on sale like I did. I think $50 for the set is a fantastic deal. And there are some lovely colors here. So I think that's it. I think that's everything I want to say about these. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on these. I did see also some very similar sets from Magello. And when I looked at the Magello paint and I looked at their color range, it seems to be quite identical. And so I suspect they're very, very similar. I didn't compare prices, but yeah, so I would be actually curious to try maybe a few of the ShinHan paints. I'm in Europe and we have some great options for gouache here, but it's always nice to discover more brands, and especially those that are available kind of worldwide and offer a very competitive price. I think especially or probably in the US, where I assume that European paint is, more expensive than it is in Europe due to import taxes and shipping costs and all of that. So this could be a really lovely option. There are some great gouache makers in the US. As far as I know, as I said, Daniel Smith. I haven't tried the Da Vinci gouache, but I love the Da Vinci watercolors. And there's, of course, M. Graham. So there are options in the US. But yeah, this seems to be another lovely option that is widely available on Amazon, at least in the US. I'm not sure I've seen it so much in Europe. But I hope you enjoyed this first impression unboxing swatching video. I will be back very soon with another one. Probably I need to do my 2024 favorites. It's been on my list, but yeah, I wanted to paint, so you have this video instead. I wish you happy holidays, whatever you're celebrating, and yeah, a happy new year if you catch this video slightly later. Have a wonderful day. Thanks again for watching. Take care. Bye bye.